Good evening to everybody, and thank you for the invitation to this very interesting meeting that every year it's held here in Krakow. Especially with this very challenging topic, architecture and technology, that I think is one of the not so clear, I think, topic in architecture. And I've tried to put on the table of the discussion some problematic relationship within the two terms, architecture and technology. The intersection of architecture, technology, techne, and humanism is a crucial theme in the history of culture and art. Reflection on how this dimension integrate has influenced not only the design of buildings and structure, but also the critical thinking and literature that accompanies their development. Architecture is an art that has always reflected the humanistic and cultural values of society. During the Renaissance, architecture was seen as an embodiment of human measure, a central concept of a humanist thinker. Alberti considered architecture as a moral and civil act, emphasizing the importance of harmonious relationship between human and the surrounding environment. The idea that architecture can elevate the human soul, improve social and cultural life, has been central in different historical periods. Great public or sacred buildings such as medieval cathedral or Renaissance square were designed to create a shared experience in which beauty and functionality were combined into cultural symbolism. Thus, this concept of genius loci, or spirit of the place, has been a recurring theme of humanistic and contemporary architecture reflection. With the belief that buildings should respect, enhance the environment and social context, the concept of this concept is not only about the physical geography of place, but its unique character and the soul of that define it. Interacting natural, architectural, cultural, and symbolic element in humanistic context. Genius loci became a guide to understand and respect the specific characteristics of a place, recognizing its value in connection with man and his experience. In ancient Rome, the genius loci was a minor deity of guardian spirit associated within a specific place. Every place, whether a house, a city, or a natural landscape, has its own genius, a sacred entity that guarded in essence and regulated its destiny. It was a way of explaining the personality of places and an acknowledgement of power and sacredness of nature and the surrounding environment. During the Renaissance, humanism recovered the concept of genius logic within a broader vision of a man and the measure of all the things. Renaissance Center of Philosophical and Artistic Thought recognized that every place has his own unique identity, which influence the human culture and life. As an indicative example of how concept of genius loci was interpreted by humanists, it's represented by the work of Alberti. In his treatise, De Re Edificatoria, Alberti emphasized the importance of contents and environment in designing building. For Alberti, a good harmonizing building with the landscape and the surrounding natural conditions, a concept that reflects a respect for the genius loci. According to Alberti, architecture should be not only an artistic and technical expression, but also a moral and civil work capable of improving the life of man while respecting the place and his spirit. In the famous, but also Francesco Petrarca, in his famous letter describing his ascent of the Mont Ventoux, Petrarca does not limit itself to describing describing the mountain. The mountain becomes not only a physical place, but also a symbol of the inner journey and spiritual elevation. For humanists, landscape and natural places were not simply passive backdrops for human activities, but significant spaces charged with spiritual symbolic value. The genius loci in this context is the invisible force that binds man and surrounding world, suggesting a deep and complex relationship between nature and human experience. Technology or techne. With the advent of the industrial age, the digital age, technology has had an increasing impact on architecture. Reinforced concrete, steel, glass, and more recently, digital and sustainable technology have enabled the creation of projects that challenge traditional physical limits. The influence of technology was particularly evident in modern movement and rationalism, with figures such as Le Corbusier, Mies van der Rohe, Walter Gropius, who saw architecture as a machine for living, where functionally and efficiently were central. The architectural literature of this time reflects a rationalist approach in which aesthetic are subordinated to constructive logic and functional efficiency. In this context, technology is seen as a means to liberate architecture from restriction of the past and create a new social order based on modernity. Perhaps more than technology, when speaking of architectural composition, we should refer to the concept of techne, as understood in the classical context, trying to clarify the misunderstanding that is often created between technology and the Greek concept of techne. In fact, the term techne and technology were related but distinct concepts, and their understanding reveals a lot of different concepts of the relationship between human knowledge and human knowledge, art, and technical production. The Greek word techne was a very broad and profound meaning, which can be translated as art, skill of technical competence. In ancient Greek, techne indicated both theoretical knowledge and practical skills necessary to carry out a certain activity, which could be artistic, artisanal, or scientific. Plato and Aristotle used the term to refer to practical knowledge oriented to a goal, distinguish it from other forms of knowledge, such as episteme, theoretical or scientific knowledge, and doxa, opinion. For Aristotle, techne was a form of applied knowledge that involved doing poiesis, and that an architect to design a building or that of a doctor to cure an illness were considered form or techne. In short, techne brings together theoretical knowledge and practice. It has a specific purpose oriented towards the production of an object or completion of an action that require manual intellectual ability based on precise rules and techniques. The term technology derives from techne, but has taken a different and more limited meaning over time. With the advent of modern era, especially during the Industrial Revolution, the word technology began to refer increasingly to industrial and mechanical process, machine and applied science that improve the capacity to produce and transform matter. Today, technology is understood as a set of scientific and technical knowledge applied to the creation of tools, process and systems that serve to solve practical problems or satisfy human needs. It is distinguished from classical technique, but the emphasis of scientific and engineering development, which is often based on the automatization and specialization of skills. So, schematically speaking, technology is oriented toward optimizing process and solving large-scale problems, thus based strongly linked to applied science and industrial and digital innovation. It often focuses on the development of machinery, advanced tools, and complex systems. A crucial difference between the two concepts lies in the relationship with knowledge and production, where technique imply a direct relationship between the craftsman or artist and his object, with a creative and manual component that led to a tangible result. Modern technology tends to involve processes mediated by machinery or complex systems that can reduce personal and manual interaction. Martin Heidegger is one of the philosophers who criticized modern technology for this reason. In his lecture, The Question Concerning Technology, 1953, Heidegger distinguished between technique and modern technology, arguing that technique allowed man to reveal the world through a creative process that respects the nature of things, while modern technology tends to reduce the world to a set of resources to be exploited. Heidegger sees modern technology as a form of enframing, a way of seeing the world that transforms into an object to be dominated and manipulated. Also, technique and technology are opposite concepts. Some contemporary thinkers and practitioners try to bring them together in a more balanced synthesis. In more sectors, such as design, sustainable architecture, or digital craftsmanship, there is an attempt to maintain the creative sensitivity and human relationship that was typical of technique, using modern technology, but often losing sight of the complexity of reality. Today, with the introduction of the advanced technologies such as BIM or artificial intelligence and innovative materials, architecture is pushing towards increasing complex and original forms. However, tension always emerges between technological progress and human needs, as excessive mechanization can risk alienation of the individual from the built environment. Sustainability and environmental impact have become fundamental themes, leading to a deeper reflection on how to integrate technology and humanism in architecture. Humanistic theoretical knowledge plays a key role in documenting, analyzing, and theorizing new development. From Vitruvius with its treatise, the Architektura, which inspired main Renaissance architects, to the manifestos of the 20th century, texts have always accompanied the evolution of architectural thought. Vitruvius' treatise emphasized the principles of utilitas, firmitas, and venustas, which represent a sort of ethical code for architectural values that have remained central for centuries. In the modern era, the work of Corbu, such towards an architecture, is a fundamental example of the reflection on how technology could be used to create buildings and respond to the functional needs of the man, while maintaining an aesthetic ideal. In contemporary times, artistic and architectural literature increasingly reflect on ethical concern for the relationship between man, technology, and the environment. Authors such as Aldo Rossi, for example, have underlined the importance of the phenomenological dimension of architecture, highlighting the risk of a too abstract and mechanical design, neglecting all human complexity. Even theorists such as Oswald Matthias Ungers, with his essays on urban space and the city, explore the implication of contemporary architecture oriented toward an increasingly globalized and technologically advanced world. The dialogue between architecture and technology and humanism is a theme deeply rooted in the history of culture and art. Humanistic reflection has always tried to keep man in his needs to the center, while technology, technology has brought new possibilities, but also new idiosyncrasies. Art literature acts as a bridge between these two worlds, offering a space for critical and theoretical analysis where architecture can be interpreted not only as a technical practice, but also an art form and reflection of the human condition. Modern and contemporary architecture is therefore at the cross between technological innovation and preservation of humanistic value, seeking to create space that respond to both practical needs and the spiritual and social aspiration of humanities. Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, and then I think I'm going too slow. Ludwig Mies van der Rohe is one of the greatest architects of the 20th century. He's famous for his minimalist approach to the architecture and his celebration of modernity and construction technique. However, his work is deeply rooted in the dialogue between classical sorry, get lost. In his work, combines the simplicity of form with the innovative use of modern materials. The synthesis between classical order and construction technique is central to Mies' work, managing to unique synthesize the relationship between classical and contemporary. Furthermore, Mies admired classical architecture for its formal clarity and the subtraction of the superfluous. Typical elements of Greek and Roman architecture, such as symmetry, proportion, the use of noble materials, were reinterpreted by Mies in a modern key through geometric rigor and purity of industrial materials. Also, he is considered one of the pioneers of the modern movement. Mies had a deep admiration for classical work, in particular for the idea of the order and proportion. He was influenced by Greek and Roman architecture, but by the attention to harmony and geometry. In this sense, Mies, like Renaissance theorists such as Alberti, sought a balance between aesthetic order and practical functionality, which is called express lasting beauty. One of the clearest examples of his architecture is the famous phrase taken from the Greek philosopher Anaximander, who proclaimed, "Architecture is the will of an epoch translated into living, mutable new space." This idea of translating time, culture, and thought into built form resonated deeply with the classical architecture, which sought to express cosmic order and periphery through structure. Mies' classicism is manifested, above all, in the search for a balance of proportion, of clarity, and forms. I think I need to cut my speech because I'm going to take in too much time. Mies used technology to create a timeless architecture capable of embodying internal value of a proportion, a synthesis between classical tradition and modern technology innovation. While modern architecture was often interpreted by a radical break with the past, Mies succeeded in integrating elements of classical world into a contemporary context. An example of works in which attempt to merge the classical idea is the Toronto Center, Domino Center. The merge classical idea of space and proportion with modern materials and technology clearly emerged. The pavilion used steel, glass, and marble. No, now I can go back. Probably some picture were missed. I lost some picture. Anyway, the pavilion, in which is attempt to merge a classical heritage space to create a fluid and monumental space, miss idea that architecture should create a calm and traditional inner universe. The reflected glass surfaces and the placement of material give a sense of lightness and transparency in stark contrast and heaviness in the classical structure. But overall effect is the same, a sense of majesty, of balance, and the recall a rigor of classical world. The pavilion has no superfluous decoration, yet its order, its proportion of play or refined material make it almost modern, a modern temple. The use of steel as a visible structural element is amplified. Misbelief that the architecture should express its constructive essence, a principle that derives directly from the classical approach to construction. Myths represent the bridge between the classical world and the modernity, managing to combine the order and harmony of the past with the new technological possibility of the 20th century. In its architecture, the classical traditional proportion is combined with the use of innovative materials such as steel and glass, creating buildings that are both modern and timeless. Ultimately, Mies demonstrates that the dialogue between classic and technology is not an opposition, but a possibility of synthesis where the eternal value of architecture can be reinterpreted through the new means that technology offers. That is when it became techne. This has allowed his architecture to be not only an expression of modernity, but also to endure as a symbol of order and beauty, just like the classical monument that inspired him. Thank you.